We'll bring the budget meeting of May 12th to order. Do I have approval of the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda for today's budget meeting.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And just plugging up. So then we'll do public comment. Do we have public comment?
Happy birthday.
Oh, sure. Thank you. I'm glad I'm still here. I'll take another one. Okay. We had no public comment. No.
No, I did not receive any requests for public comment.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, then Lori.
Okay, as I mentioned last week, I was going to recommend a change to page 55 of the proposed budget, and that's to the transient room tax fund, and you all have copies, and at home we emailed the materials to you. And so I put this in the approved by budget committee column, and you can see what that adjustment looks like. And so the process and paying out the room taxes that we collect next year. I don't know if you're going to wait to the end to make all of whatever proposed amendments that there may be. So desire to make this change. Want to do that
This is where,
end, or do you want to do it now as a motion? It's up to you.
so far,
Suggest we clean them all up at the end.
at the end, yeah, that's,
That's my
I
suggestion.
think we only have one other thing, what I brought up, that saving some money,
Mhm.
I would like to talk about
Yeah.
again. So we can, yeah, let's
think
do
that
it at the end.
That's okay.
Okay, because we need to see what Missy over here wants for her budget. So,
I say anytime the public works director goes shopping, it really hurts you.
yeah.
There's nothing in.
He's got big taste.
Everything's got 7 figures to it.
So did anyone have any questions about the proposed amendment that I brought to you? Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, wait, Lori, could you just go over that one more time? Because I made notes last week, which make absolutely no sense to me at all now.
Sure. This fund accumulates the 70% of the 1% tax enacted, I don't know what year anymore, but all that money comes into this fund, and we have an agreement with the chamber that whatever we collect, we pay out to them. So if I'm budgeting conservatively during the year on what we think we might get, and we receive more room tax than what I budgeted, because my revenue collection exactly matches my budgeted spending authority. So if we get more, I have to pay more out, and then I would end up paying more than my spending authority. So what I've done is I've added amount on to what I think my budget's going to be, to allow for that spending authority to exist if we need it. We never pay out more than we collect. We collected less than the budget, then we would pay less than the budget.
Is that okay, Phyllis?
Yeah, thank you very much. That makes sense. Thank you.
Now, we received a lot of complaints last week about the paper shuffling. So if you have one of the speakers near your paper, I just want to kind of comment that it picks up everything. So if you can kind of move papers to the side. Sorry, they are really great speakers, but that was,
I noticed that when I missed one too.
yeah.
Hold on a second. She's unplugged.
Looks like the audio is muted.
Did you want to speak? It looks like you have your hand up.
Oh, I was just gonna say the audio is muted, but it's back.
So the button, the mics that are in front of you, if you hit the button on the top, it will mute it. So if somebody inadvertently touches it, it would do that.
Mine's on.
So questions on the SDCs?
Phyllis has a question. Phyllis?
My question was that it was muted and I really didn't hear what it was that you folks were talking about. So,
You could not hear?
Correct.
Okay. So Phyllis, what I was referring to is on your agenda, items number 6, 11, 14, 17, and 19. All have reference to SDCs. All those items are related to one project, which you guys gave me funding for last year. It enabled me to bring on a consultant to review our system development charges. That project won't complete until after the June 30th budget cutoff. So those items reflect the carryover for that project into the new budget year. So instead of going over those item by item, I wanted to just highlight that right out of the gate. And if you have questions when we get there, feel free to ask them to me. Okay. All right, if you'll turn to page 124, I'm going to start with administrative services. The only changes that we had in that particular category is computer expenses. We've allotted for a laptop for myself so that when I'm away from City Hall, I can still access my email. If we had an event where I was in the EOC or out in the field, I could work off of a laptop and still function. So I'm one of the ones that does not have a laptop. So that's the only change we made there. Our vehicle repair and maintenance, I inherited the old HRAP truck and we've cleaned it up and it's working well for me. But it's a truck that needs some maintenance just based on how it's been used in the past down on the beach. So we added some dollars there. So if I have some issues with that truck, I can get it repaired. And then our operating equipment and tools, we need to get tools for Trevor's truck so that when he's out in the field, he's got tools. He can do some things that we don't have to roll the guys off of a job. He can handle it, but his truck needs to be equipped with the proper tools. So those are the only changes that we made in that category. Okay, next up, if you'll go to page 35. Our general fund. The only thing that we allocated for here, and this is going to be depending on the council's final decision, is we set money aside to be able to address the roads and the ECFR that we've been talking about. So we put money aside, depending on what you guys decide, we have those funds to be able to address that work that we need to do up there. All right, next page, parks. Got quite a bit of activity under parks. The first item is our item 62300, our non-capital parks improvements. Our Parks Committee is working on a project now that they want to update some of the signage in our city parks as well as our beach access points. So we've allocated $2,000 for them to be able to make their wish list of signage changes that they want to make throughout town. So that's what that money is for. Our materials and supplies budget, we increased that by $3,000. We may not need that full amount. That's to address our issue that we have with the rose bushes by the tennis court. We got some complaints last year about the weeds overtaking that. The roses are planted very densely together. So we need to pull them out, put an organic fertilizer in there that doesn't populate so many weeds. And so that money is going to be to address that and then put the rose bushes back in. The next one is under community forestry. We increased that slightly. This is because we've seen a significant increase in having to have our arborists come and evaluate trees that have been subject for consideration of removal. The next item down is number 62903. That's the SDC that I talked about. That will be the money that we carry over for next year for this particular segment of that evaluation. The next item is account number 63016. That's our service truck replacement. That's going to be for a new vehicle to replace aging vehicles. You're going to see that one other time in the budget, and I'll mention that the vehicles that we're replacing, one truck is 24 years old. It's a 1997, and the other truck is a 1999. It's 22 years old. So I think you can obviously see we're in need of a couple of trucks. The other item is a dump truck, 63062. We talked to the budget committee and council last year about this. Our small dump truck, when you put anything into the basket that's on that dumper, we exceed the allotted tonnage that truck is actually meant to be used for. So right now, the only thing that we're really using it for, because it is an OSHA issue, is any clippings. So vegetation, tree, right-of-way clippings and whatnot. We can't use rock or anything in that. So we're asking to replace that truck. The plans for that small dump truck is to remove the basket and use it as a flatbed truck. It's possible that Rick might be able to use it in emergency management to be able to transport portable water. So before we get rid of it, we will talk about other uses that we could do with it that doesn't exceed the actual tonnage that truck is meant for.
Karen,
Yes.
what does the 10% represent there in the $7,000?
Not only one department doesn't use the dump truck. All departments use it. So what we do is we allocate based on how frequent those departments use that truck, and that's the percentage that they pay into that dump truck. So you'll see that in every other department. So roads, wastewater, water, parks, they all have to use the dump truck at certain times, and we allocate the percentage based on how frequently they use it. They all pay into the kitty to purchase that truck.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, parking. No changes on this. As you know, a couple years ago, we did the slurry seal that has held very nicely. We're hoping that that lasts another 4 to 5 years. But at some point, we will be talking to you guys about repaving that parking lot. But right now, we're in good shape. Next one is the bathrooms. So the good news here is I want to thank you for the money that you gave us last year to replace the fixtures in all the public bathrooms. We did Les Shirley and the 2nd Street bathrooms. And my commitment to you was that we would cut the maintenance budget in half. And I want to just let you know that year to date, we've only spent $3,800 on maintenance. And you can see in your budget book there what we spent in past years. When I asked you for the money, we were over $16,000 in our maintenance budget because people were vandalizing those porcelain sinks, toilets, fixtures on the sinks. And we were just spending a tremendous amount of money with repairs. When you gave us the budget money, we changed those fixtures out to the jailhouse type stainless steel fixtures, and they are almost bulletproof. So that has paid dividends. Again, I want to thank you for that. We did not include Midtown Bathroom. As you know, we've outgrown the size of that bathroom. We've had to put porta potties in front of it every single year. Last year, the city had to reimburse the company that provides the porta potties because we had a lot of damage to them, not only graffiti, but people were dumping regular trash into it. So the company refused to come take it and dispose of it because there was trash in there. So we had to deal with that whole situation. My desire is to rebuild the Midtown Bathroom. And I talked to you guys about this last year. I have a preliminary drawing that I'll be bringing to you as well as the design review board. And then I'm going to be, with your approval, pursuing various types of funding that may be available to us, not only grant money, but our federal infrastructure money. This would qualify for that. I also have my eye on TLT funds. If there's a way we can use that, I'll take anything and everything to be able to rebuild that bathroom. So that's why we did not include those fixtures in that facility, because we'd be ripping all that out if we get to rebuild it. But I think you can see the paybacks on the investment that we made for the other bathrooms, and I'm hoping to be able to address Midtown. The other commitment I made to you is on supplies. All the staff in City Hall cast their votes last year on the type of toilet paper and paper towels and toilet seat covers for us to be able to reduce the expenditures and supplies. With COVID hitting, it provided a little bit of an anomaly for me, so I can't really see the cost benefit of that change because we had a tremendous spike in supplies. So I'm hoping that as we move beyond this, that we'll be able to see some benefit with that. But that's an area that I'm trying to reduce the cost for us. See, I think that's about it. Our janitorial services obviously took a spike because we had the cleaning company cleaning our bathrooms every 2 hours. We're back down to our normal 4 times a day increment. If we have spikes in COVID or we're put back up in the extreme category, we would go back to that every 2-hour cleaning to be able to meet the commitments of having our public bathrooms open. But right now, it's our normal 4 times a day interval. We've been lucky with the company that we've had, that they have not increased their prices to us, although they had to bring on another body to be able to keep up with the frequency of the cleaning and our summer spike that we saw in tourists being here.
Grant, would you talk a little bit about the plans that you're presenting to council for the restrooms and how you're taking it to DRB to try to get grants?
So in order to pursue some of the funding opportunities, the application requires us to not only have a cost estimate from a builder, but also a preliminary design. And that's what I'll be bringing to you in next week's meeting. And I'm scheduled to talk to the DRB 2 days after I talk to you guys. The architect locally that did the preliminary design for us, because we're landlocked in that footprint, we can't expand out. To double the number of fixtures in the building, the only reasonable option was to go 2-story. Something I would have never thought of, but he said he's seen 2-story bathrooms in other tourist locations that they have that kind of a footprint limitation. And so obviously our ADA requirements would all be on the first floor. Second floor would have fixtures and have a stairway and so on. It's a very nice design. I think it would be an improvement to that location. It meets all of our requirements as far as what DRB expects of the shingle siding and the windows and trim and so on and so forth. So the contractor gave me a preliminary bid. You know what's happening with materials. So we have no idea how that's going to fluctuate. It actually came in a lot less than what I expected it to come in, because we would be preserving the downstairs, basically adding a second story. So the bottom part of it would be a remodel and the top part would be an addition. And so at this point, we're looking at less than $200,000, pending what happens with material. Obviously, even if we got the funding that I'd like to chase, and some of those funding sources are on a timeline. So this is why I asked Bruce to try to get this in front of you as quick as possible. when you apply for some of these fundings, it gives you sometime 2 years to spend the money. So you'd want to time it to where the materials start to come back down into reason. I wouldn't want to build when we're at this kind of a peak right now. But some of those grants would give us the flexibility to do that, but at least we could lock in those funds and know that this is something we've been approved to do. It would save us the money on the porta potties. Obviously, the vandalism. My number one concern about porta potties is that somebody thinks it's funny to tip one of them over and we've got sewage out on the street. It's not unusual to see a long line in Midtown, as you know. There's increased businesses there that have caused a lot more activity in Midtown than we've had in years past. So anything else I forgot?
No, other than it's just not right to have porta potties on Main Street. You know, we can do better.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Sean.
Next item is the page 46. This is our ECFR reserve. Changes in that category. The reserve funds, I would probably just keep an eye on that and may ask Bruce and Lori to consider allowing me to use some of that towards any of the maintenance or roads that we're having to address up there. Or just, I look at that a little bit of a savings account. So if we need it, we can, and it's there. But right now I don't have that earmarked for anything in particular. Made no changes to that particular item on the budget. Okay, next up is recycle, page 72. Another topic that I've talked to you guys about, as you know, this last year was really crazy because of COVID. People were locked up at home, and guess what they did? Yard work.
Yeah.
And so our yard waste just exploded. We've been using our loader to push those bins down as tight as possible to get as much in those units before we have them, the Recology come and empty that for us. But irregardless, we saw a big increase in the number of times they had to come pick up. The other challenge we have with recycle is our ordinance does not currently spell out that commercial landscapers cannot dump there. So that's going to be something I bring to you to ask you to allow me to modify our wording that says it's for residents. It's not for businesses to use. They should all be dumping out on the 26th, where most of the large ones dump, but we have a lot of small landscaping companies here in Cannon Beach and in some of the surrounding areas that realize we don't charge like a lot of the other cities do, and they come here and dump. Personally, I think we need to change that. Our recycle costs are going up. We have little to no way to control that unless we go into something like this where we change our wording in the ordinance. It gives a very specific criteria of how it can be used, or we go into some sort of a token or permit type thing that they buy a permit or a token for the year and they're able to do X number of dumps. But we'd have to police that. You know, guys have to be there. They're either doing a punch card or we have to have some way to track that. So that's something that I've asked my team to brainstorm and talk about how we could go there. I'd invite you guys to talk about it at your workshops because I need some help with that. Same with the cardboard. With everything going to the to-go model, we saw a huge increase in cardboard. When the restaurants ordered all of their containers, that came in containers, and then you have the containers. And so all that was translated into the paper and cardboard recycle. The other item that you'll see small increase there is for vehicle maintenance. Recycle is the one that has the truck that is a 1997. We call it Old Blue. So should we be able to replace that? If you approve that, then I don't expect to need to use that vehicle maintenance. Same with equipment and repair. We have a forklift that's old. We've been limping that along. I didn't ask for a replacement this year, but I did bump up the budget for the maintenance of that forklift. And as you know, we have a baler that's failing. We had a scary incident last year where it just quit and we had to do a very expensive repair. And if we had to replace that, we're looking at close to $100,000 to replace that machine. So I gave us a bump up in that just to protect us if we had to have more maintenance on that.
You have a question from Daryl?
Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering, what's the definition of the recycle surcharge?
The definition of the recycle surcharge. Not
The
sure
one
I
for
understand.
101,000.
That is the franchise fee that Recology pays us for the ability to collect garbage in our town.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Talking account number 46040
Yes.
in the budget, okay. Any other questions on recycle input, comments? I'm open to anything you guys would like to ask me or suggest to me on how we might control our cost out there.
When it comes to landscaping and the dump they do, would it be lucrative for us to charge? And
I think it would. I think the idea of a token or a permit that they can buy annually would be a good halfway point. I hate to see us cut them off because there are some, small one-man type landscaping companies that it's not a horrible burden to us, but over the course of a week, it adds up and we're absorbing that. The key thing is, how do we track it? I don't know how Andrew would monitor how many times they've dumped for us to know that they've reached their, say we allow them 8 times a year or 12 times a year, whatever the number is that we decide. How do we track that is the key. So I would be very open to that if we could dial in how we can make that work. So maybe there's a barcode that Andrew could scan when they come in, but that means somebody's got to be standing there watching, monitoring the gate. He's a one-man show.
Period of time, right?
I'm sorry.
It could be done during certain hours possibly.
Yeah, I'm open to any ideas, but I'm leaning towards that. Like I say, instead of just cutting them off and saying you can no longer do this, I would rather see us say you can do it, but X number of times a year during certain hours, and then we can track that. And they buy a once a year permit or token and allows them to do that. So I think it would be advantageous for us to consider something like that.
Do we know what other towns do?
Other towns do charge. I don't know how they're doing it. I can explore that. I think that's why we've seen people come here, because some municipalities are no longer accepting certain types of waste or recycle, and others have started to charge. And so they know that Cannon Beach doesn't charge. Usually we try to do it through an education process where when Andrew pretty much knows everybody in town, if he doesn't recognize the person, has a chat with them, he said, let you dump today, but it's really for Cannon Beach residents. If they send them away, we find stuff on the side of the road or just outside our recycle gate, that they'll just dump it anyway. So we try to do it through education. And it's been pretty good so far, but we're seeing a lot of people from sister cities coming here.
When is Andrew there?
I'm sorry?
When is Andrew there? When is he at the location?
Hours. Oh, Andrew's hours. I'm sorry. We're closed on Monday and then we close at 4 o'clock, open at 8 o'clock, 8 to 4.
Okay.
We bring in a seasonal person that Recology has helped us be able to do. They help fund that. And so that person starts just after Memorial Day and usually leaves just around Labor Day. So that gives Andrew some support in the summer when the spikes are really high.
Yeah, I was just curious because I'm there every Sunday morning. I don't see anyone around. So I was just curious what his, yeah,
And that's it. The person that's there doesn't stay there all the time.
right.
Andrew sometimes, especially in the summers, working in parks. When you come in on the weekends, it's Kirk, and Kirk is in parks. He comes there periodically, he checks the plant. So we really don't have somebody there all the time that we would be able to go ahead and say that this is how we're gonna do it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Andrew's kind of our floater, if you will, for parks. In the summer, it gets more than what even Kirk and Joe can manage. So Andrew helps out with the vegetation management, like Bruce said. He works Saturday, but he does not work Sunday, and Kirk covers both. He plays dual duty on Sunday. So. Okay.
Question. It's been my understanding that our garbage rates were supposed to reflect the cost of maintaining that yard debris program. And I take by your reaction, that's not the case at all. So why don't we start from that point and work our way towards what it would get us to be whole, rather than subsidizing the program?
That's a good question. As you heard last night, Recology chose not to increase the rates because of COVID. They were empathetic with people.
And I agree with all that, but I was also unaware of what you're speaking about today. Had I had that information at the time, I would have responded differently.
I think it would it'd be beneficial for us to look at the rates and have that discussion.
Okay. And how far off are we?
I couldn't answer that at this point. I'd have to look at it and see what percentage we're talking about. I really don't know. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but that's something I can bring back to you.
No, because we're going to transfer from the general fund here.
The number that might be helpful, Brandon, is the 29,000, which is the transfer in from the general fund.
Okay.
And that's what it required, that's what's required to get us to pay all the bills. So we get the money from Recology. And we get, some of that money transferred in. So that's, might give you an idea of the order of magnitude of the problem.
Okay, so, to me, it doesn't seem like a huge magnitude. What you would have to raise rates in this town to absorb $30,000 doesn't seem like that much money. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're correct. I'm just trying to think it through. Yes, if we raise the rates that much, then we would be covering that cost. I think that when I heard your question, I didn't know if you were talking about just the yard debris.
I am talking about just the yard debris.
Okay, I don't know if we can separate out. We would have to look at what what we budget for the container pickup. And then see what kind of a difference there is on that. But we can go do an analysis on it to find out. But what I think
Responding because I was asked to respond to what.
No problem. I'm just trying to think through how we could do that.
Brandon, what I can do is I can look at the cardboard and the yard debris, the number of pickups we did versus years in the past, and see how that contributed to the overall shortfall of the budget requiring us to transfer in. I wouldn't use last year as a benchmark just because of what happened with COVID. I would probably look at previous years, but each year when I've come to you guys, we have fallen short of, we've had to do a transfer of some sort. Sometimes
That's been my
smaller.
recollection as well.
I'm sorry?
That's been my recollection as well.
Yeah, sometimes larger, sometimes smaller. We can't predict, what's going to drive those. But the overall pressure that I see on recycle is the number of times that they've had to come pick up cardboard and transport it. That's a cost we can't control. And the same with the yard debris. That seems to be the biggest pressure point for recycle. That's why I was talking to the team about some sort of token program or annual permit. At least we could get those back in check and see how our overall budget looks after that. And I can do a deeper dive with Lori's help in here and see how those two contribute overall. Outside of that, it's been the repair on the equipment, which I had to ask you guys for some budget help on the baler. But that's an anomaly that happened. It doesn't happen every single year. But I forecast for that aging equipment, just like the forklift. But I think our biggest predator, if you will, is the cardboard and the yard waste. It's just something we can't predict. It's very difficult to control unless we go into some sort of a fee-based dumping for non-residents and commercial. I mean, if people from other cities want to dump here, we should let them for free.
How do you differentiate somebody coming to a recycling center?
Well,
At one time, we were given.
just like anything else, when they buy their permit, they have to show their address and we issue them their permit. But I can assure you, Andrew knows everybody. And when he sees an unfamiliar face, he has some sort of a conversation with them. And he knows, that's how we've known that people are coming from other areas. Other questions on recycling? Okay, let's go to water, page 77. So the first increase I did here is in engineering, and you'll see this in wastewater as well, and a little bit in roads. Last year, I only had $5,000, and the reason I left it low is because I really didn't know what I didn't know. And my goal here was to get as many projects shovel ready as I possibly could. This is something that the Public Works Committee and I have talked about, how we constantly have projects queued up and staged, ready for construction. So we're constructing one year, engineering, in hopes of constructing the next year. So we're constantly have that conveyor belt of projects, if you will, and we have a sense of planning in advance and forecasting. So I upped that to 35,000. This does not mean these jobs don't go out to bid, not just awarded to somebody. We use the proper contract procurement process, but it gives me enough money that I can use that to not only forecast. Sometimes I do what they call pre-engineering. I'll call an engineer that has worked with the city for years, that knows our infrastructure. And I'll say, if we did this project that had these types of components in it, what do you think this would cost us? They're not charging me $30,000 or $40,000 to give me an engineered document. They're giving me a planning budget number. So they can say, yeah, let me cost that out for you. And they can give me a number that I can come to the budget committee or the council and or start to plan looking ahead. And when I go chase, again, grant money, federal money, I've got a real dollar amount that I could base that application on. Otherwise, I'm flying blind and I'm just guessing, and it's no good for anybody. So that's what these dollars would be used for. Okay. So that's the one item. Next item on the list is 62580, facility maintenance. We deferred this last year and I didn't put anything in there. That's just the upkeep of our water plant. And so that increase you will see is dedicated for that. Next item down, 62990, that's the system development charge I spoke to you about. This is the percentage of water that we're looking at that contributes to that. Next item down is 63062. That's the percentage that water pays into that dump truck that we're purchasing. Any questions on that? And then page 80 is water reserve. And there's no change there. Okay, Bruce just noted that I overlooked page 74, our recycling reserve.
Has her hand up for a question too.
have no change to that page, but if there's any questions. Go ahead.
Alicia,
Hi, I just wanted to review, if someone could remind me what kind of rate slope we're talking about for water, sewer, and stormwater as we get to those, just so that we understand if there are rate increases proposed or not. And I think I've said before, I'm an advocate for small, steady rate increases rather than big spikes every 5 years or something. And so I just wanted to check and see. I know we were going to do some work on that and wanted the committee to get updated on that.
Okay, answer that, Lori.
Yeah, we are budgeting a rate increase in the proposed budget. In water, it's going to be a 4% increase. And I think, if I recollect correctly, I think it's like 97 cents onto the residential 3/4 inch base rate. And some other minimal amount on the per 100 cubic foot rate. You'll see one in sewer as well, and that's coming in at a 3% increase. And I do have the line items separated in the budget, so you can see the incremental amount that is creating those, the need for those increases. We'll be bringing this to council May 18th. So to discuss those.
And when Karen's talking about, going after loans and things, those increases, that's to pay the debt service pretty much, right?
And operations as
Yes,
well.
so it's an increase in operations, but also it's the debt service. And that's over a 20, 30-year period. So there is an increase and that's ongoing, it stays with it. But that's how we're able to do some of these multi-million-dollar projects. Okay.
Next up, if you'll go to page 86, I'll take you through wastewater. First item is account number 62540. Again, that's the engineering fees for the same purpose as I spoke of earlier. This is going to give me the opportunity to get cost estimates for budgeting, to prepare projects to be shovel ready, where I can put them out to contract bid right away and so forth. Next item on that I have an increase is electrical services. As I talked to you about last year, our plant is going beyond 13 years old, and it's time to make some improvements out there. We had a couple of our panels in our blower room fail, and it blacked out where the guys couldn't do the reading, so we had to replace that. Not only did we have to buy the new panel, but then we had to have our local electrician come in and install that for us. And so you have two impacts there, the unit you're replacing and then the electrical that goes along with that. Next item down, 62564, excavation services. That involves anytime we're doing any kind of after work. A lot of times it involve excavation work, or anytime we have a repair. Obviously, we have to open the ground to get in and do sewer repairs. The next item that you see the increase is 62990. That's the SDC again. That's wastewater's portion of that system development charge is being evaluated. Then you'll see the dump truck 63062. That is wastewater's contribution to the purchase of the new dump truck. And lastly on that 63065. You want to queue up my photo for me, Rusty?
second.
In order for the guys to do basin maintenance out of the wastewater plant, they were using a small little fishing boat. It was very unsafe. It could tip over very easily. So last year, we upgraded to a cherry picker. That's the two guys out there trying to do maintenance in the basin on a cherry picker. That wasn't ideal or effective either. So we researched what we really needed and what a lot of other communities or municipalities use, and it's a pontoon boat. It's a flat bottom boat that has a hoist, so they can get in and lift up the cables, and they're not physically manually trying to do that themselves, which causes people to flip over the edge of whatever they're in. So the pontoon boat is $8,000. It's a small investment for the safety of my crew and the effectiveness of being able to get out and do the maintenance in those basins the right way. So we chuckle about that, call it our party boat. We'll probably name it and initiate it when we get it. But that's going to be a very smart investment for us, and I appreciate the approval on that. And that's it on the wastewater. Any questions on that?
The DEQ loan interest.
Sorry,
What is the DEQ loan interest?
that is on the Materniska loan that we were awarded. That's the interest that we have to set aside to be prepared to pay when we start doing our drawdown. The Materniska loan that we were awarded is for the cover at the Materniska pump station.
You have a question from Daryl?
Go ahead, Daryl.
I just had a question on 67620, the transfer to wastewater reserve. Why the big jump from last year?
67620.
Yeah,
Maria, I'm gonna let you answer that.
That is the what are you were talking about the transfers, right?
yeah, I just noticed it
Those
seemed like a big
are,
jump.
we'll bring loan proceeds in, and then we transfer that funding to the reserve fund. So when we get loans, we'll get drawdowns on the loans, and as those come in, we transfer them over to the reserve fund, which is paying for the improvement and the projects.
Okay,
A good segue into our reserve. If you go to page 89, I think that'll make more sense when I go over some of these items, Daryl.
Karen,
right.
have we gotten that loan for that already? Or is that anticipated?
Say again.
Have we received the loan from Materniska yet?
We've been
approved.
awarded that loan. We just
Okay.
haven't done any drawdowns. So Lori goes ahead and sets that money aside, knowing that we're going to have to pay that, which is,
I just didn't catch if it was anticipated loan for this year or
it's already
already.
a promised loan.
Thank
We
you.
have it.
One that had the,
That's the cover.
but it also had the, no, I'm sorry, DEQ doesn't have the,
Yeah, that
Principal
loan
forgiveness.
was through Business Oregon. DEQ sponsors it. It's one of our 30-year, 1%, 50% forgiveness loan. Okay. If you go to page 89, the first item listed there, account number 63009 that I want to talk about. That's a project to upgrade the control panel in the Materniska pump station and the electronics. Everybody knows what happened there last July. And we're committed to getting that pump station up to speed where the guys have some control over what's happening there diagnostic wise before they even get to the pump station. So if they get an alarm in the middle of the night, they'll have SCADA capability that on their tablet or even through their phone, they can see what the codes are that the pump station's telling them. They have a certain level of control remotely. They could start a third pump. They can do certain things before they even land their feet at the site. So if they're driving over from their home in Seaside, which Marty lives in Seaside, our other two wastewater folks are here in Cannon Beach, but just in that time for them to get the alarm and get on site, this upgrade will give them some SCADA capability like our water team has. I'm pursuing federal funding. So if we were to be awarded that funding, obviously we would not need the funding that I'm asking you for, but I don't want that to delay us from being able to do this upgrade. So our goal there is to get the cover on it with the grant money that we've been given, the loan money we'd be given, upgrade the guts inside of that, And there is a generator that we want to replace the existing generators, an old military natural gas type generator that we want to get converted to diesel. And then the majority of our generators are diesel. We have a diesel trailer that we could refuel it in emergencies. And we have some consistency about what kind of generators we have out on the field. So that is our goal at Materniska. That's going to get a total overhaul. The next item down is 63020. That's a master plan project for Sayusla and Midway to have permanent generators. Those are 2 pump stations out of the last 4 that we have left that we have to physically roll a generator out when we have an event or in preparation of a storm. So 2 weekends ago, when Pacific Power was having to replace the insulator that blew up behind our public works yard, Trevor went ahead and rolled the generators with the guys, and we were ready in case they had to turn it off. And I'm glad we did, because at 2:30 in the morning, the power went out. The generators were already out there. All we had to do is crank them up. So that requires us to roll physically some of the generators at those 4 sites that we don't have permanent generators. Our master plan identified these 2 as adding on to those pump stations, getting permanent generators. That would take us down to just 2 pump stations that we have to physically roll generators out to.
Are these generators, the ones that you got the grant for?
Yes, and so that was my next comment. I have put in for a FEMA application that identifies these 2 generators. Also, our Ecola pump station is in need of a replacement generator. We're having problems with that one. The one down at our main pump station that doesn't always want to start for us. And Materniska that I talked to you about. So all of those generators are on this FEMA application. We've also put in for federal funding for the generators, because the federal funding is infrastructure, and because these generators support critical infrastructure, it qualifies for that money as well. So we're chasing all those funding opportunities. I don't know what the chances are that we will get that. The gal that helps with the FEMA, Civil West, helped us with that application, and she said she felt confident that we should get some of that money for the generators from FEMA. So I'm crossing my fingers, but again, I'm asking you for that because I don't want to be delayed in addressing that issue, waiting for that funding. The next item down is 63025, and that is for the engineering for those locations, for those permanent generators at Midway and Sayusla. The next item down, 63030, that's the COLA generator. That's an old military surplus generator that we acquired many years ago, and that's what's in the COLA pump station. Until just recently, we had no ability, if that generator failed, to bring another generator down and plug it in. So we've since addressed that. We had our local electrician come in, put a plug in that we could take one of our other generators over if we can't get the military one to start, and plug another generator in. The problem with that is I'm taking generators back and forth between pump stations. So you see the need that we have to address some of these generators. The same one with the next item down, 63035. That's the generator at Maine that doesn't always want to start. We've had the generator folks come out. They do regular maintenance on our generators for us. We have a contract that they come and do this annually. They've tried to diagnose this, and they've just flat said, you get a generator that's of this age, and our generators don't run long enough, continually enough, that really keeps them in good working order. We're just doing a start to test the working ability of it, leave it run a little bit, and then it's off. And so the only time it's really running is like a car that's parked in the garage. Unless you get it out on the highway and you drive it and you really run that vehicle for a while, it's hard on it just to have these incremental starts whenever we have an emergency. And so it's just the normal wear and tear that you're going to see in a generator. So that's the other one that we've asked to be able to replace. And then lastly, the next item, 63515, this is the Haystack Pump Station. It was on the list for a project to be completed year before last. You guys gave us the money. This is our only pump station that is on private property. At the time, the homeowner had their oceanfront home for sale, and they asked us to please not do this project. That home has since been sold, but the homeowner is not interested in us increasing our footprint to put a permanent generator at that site. So Haystack will be one of the few two left that would be manual generators that we have to roll out. And if we got down to just two, that's okay. But what also needs to be done there is a gravity main, a force main line replacement, and just a way overdue maintenance that we have to have on that pump station. I would say that that and Materniska are my two major priorities this year. They cannot wait any longer. Questions on any of those projects? All these projects were identified in my final report that I gave to DEQ relative to our overflow. And they gave a final closure letter to us that that's done and over. We paid our fine of $1,650. And they see the progressive maintenance that we have committed to here. The financing that we pursued, I gave them a list of all the financing avenues that we've chased, and their response was, "You're going to be one busy person." Fact. That's okay.
So Karen, I have a question. If we don't get, have we gotten loans for some of these that Materniska was a loan?
Materniska is the only one that's been committed to and awarded for us.
Okay, so the others are potential grants.
Mhm.
If we don't get those, how do we pay for them?
We don't. That's why I'm asking you for the money.
So the money would come from the general
General
fund?
Mhm.
Okay. And the rate increases that we're paying would pay for,
Will contribute to the,
contribute to it, but not necessarily pay
yes,
the overall?
yes.
Okay.
So that's why the rate increase is needed, obviously. And it will contribute to the funding source of this. So we won't have to have as much from the general fund to address it when we do our rate increase. And when we apply for these, as I gave you the presentation February 4th that I gave you guys of our entire plan here, when we apply for those loans, it's just like your mortgage. You got to be able to show that you're going to be able to pay this back. So they're looking for us to commit to a rate increase. We don't have to tell them how much, but I have to show that the council have said, yes, we have the ability to pay this back, and it does involve a rate increase.
So if we get grants, then we don't have to take as much out of the general fund.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions on wastewater? Okay.
Now let's go to page 95, storm. Only two items that you'll see on storm is the rate study, the SDCs that I talked to you about, and the 30% contribution to the dump truck. I do want to talk to you a little bit about a project that we have lingering out there that you guys are very aware of. My learning experience up on 7th and Oak storm that we did the improvement on that made state parks very unhappy with me. I hired Windsor Engineering to evaluate what we did up there. They said it's great. They want to see a little bit more modification on that, which would be on our side of the vegetation line. And by doing that, they feel that there would be nothing that would come out of that outfall that is out there. They feel that we have the potential to possibly remove that. My desire would be that we would leave it in place until we know that that is the case, and then obviously remove that to make state parks happy. I have a completed engineered document from them that I just received yesterday We would not have to have that permitted because it would be all on our side of the vegetation line. And basically what it does is puts in another parallel system to exactly what we put in there before. So it kind of provides a primary and a secondary, if you will. The ground is a natural filtration, so it's a lot similar to other municipalities that use everything from trees as a natural filtration to different types of rock and drain configurations. And anything coming off the pavement through those drains before it got out to the ocean water would be filtered naturally. So that is the design. I did not ask for that money, but I would like to ask for that money from you and have you consider that. We're looking at about $55,000 for that. I don't know with the materials and what's happening right now, how that would change. I'm hoping that somewhere between 40 and 55,000, we could complete that project. And we would hopefully reestablish our relationship with state parks. Wouldn't need a permit from them. Again, it's all on our side of the vegetation line. But it would kind of put that project to bed. So I'd ask you to consider that. I didn't ask for it, but it's something that I will be bringing to you in a work session to review in more detail. Questions on that? Next up is the storm reserve, and there is no change to that category.
What page?
Next up is page 103. That's our roads. Change we made is on 62450 consultant professional fees. That's going to be some assistance with some engineering for Larch Street rebuild. Larch Street is on our list for paving, but before we do that, we have a major sewer job that we need to do in there and storm. As you know, everything behind that Lazy Susan's parking lot there is just kind of a quagmire relative to storm. We have a lot of issues in that area. So we're going to be coordinating with homeowners and businesses in that area when we redesign our storm, that we get some of that hooked up to our system to help flow the runoff water. The majority of what comes off town is going through that path. And so it's a major part of the downtown overall stormwater flow or runoff flow. So that's going to be a big job. The paving part of it isn't so expensive. It's the infrastructure that has to be done. Water, we don't need to do anything with water. That line was replaced. Daniel said we're good as far as water, but sewer got a lot of bellies in that. And so from first to second along Larch is going to be a major. So I want some engineering help. And obviously our excavation is going to be big as well, because we'll have to have either one of our local excavators assist with that.
Do we know if we're planning to change some of the parking arrangement in that area?
Some of the parking in that area?
Yeah. On the right of way.
Yeah, when we pay, we talked about that. I mean, I think that it's going to improve it just because the street is going to be established a little better than it is as far as its width. It's kind of deceiving right now because of all the gravel and the potholes and everything. The parallel or diagonal parking on the side of the Lazy Susan parking lot, you know, we can't change that. And some of that parking lends itself to the needs of those businesses. And I think some of the complexes across the street. But as far as the other side of the street, I think it's going to reestablish the right of way more effectively. And then we can address the parking on the areas that we may need to designate as no parking. Or it provides space there that we don't have today.
And that's the trouble side, it's the west side.
Definitely.
Because it looks like it's okay to park.
And there is a segment of that, I think, where that diagonal parking is, that it may behoove us to say no parking on the other side of the street. But until we really get that cleaned up, and I have Jeff and Chief sit down, the three of us, Public Works, Planning, and our PD always takes a look at any parking issues, and we collectively make the decision of what's best for signage or modification of parking. And that street will definitely be one that we really want to take a hard look at. And again, the engineering fees, same, no change particularly, but that 10,000 is going to be used for that large street improvement, I can guarantee you. Next item down, 62640, pavement preservation. We had typically carried about 100,000 in paving. We cut it last year. And we had to cut our paving short. None of these streets are gravel going to pavement. They're all currently pavement that just need overlays really badly. The Public Works team vetted the list of considerations. I'll be bringing that to you for your review. Not so much as approval. Normally I bring you a gravel street going to pavement. I just want you to be aware of what streets we're going to be doing. And the next item down, 62845, the SDCs that we talked about before. And then the dump truck, obviously roads uses the dump truck more than any of the other departments. So their contribution to that percentage is 40%. And then 63330 is a new case skip loader. Our small loader, like I mentioned before, we'd like to move that over to recycle and have Andrew use that to push down those bins so that we can get as much in those bins as we possibly can before the pickup, and see if we can continue to try to reduce the frequency of those pickups. We need the bigger loader to really be effective with most of the jobs we use. We use our bigger loader. A lot of times we'll have water and wastewater, or water and roads have something going on at the same time. They both can't use the same loader. So we really need to address that need. And then lastly, the second pickup truck that we need to replace the 1995 truck. Questions in that? Okay. Bruce just brought to my attention, I overlooked another page, page 80, water reserve. Sorry about that. Thank you, Bruce. I'll bring your attention to item 63030. We're on page 80. This is our phase one of our water resiliency project for $556,000. That's a loan that's in process right now. Business Oregon has given us a verbal that will probably get those funds. That's the presentation I gave you guys February 4th of all of our master plan projects. That was for the 3 seismic valves and all the valving and piping that goes with those for each of our water tanks. So that's what that $556,000 is for. We're in the final stages of all that paperwork right now. And then the next item down, 63035, that is phase 2 of our water resiliency project. And that dollar amount represents a third of the 3.2 million that project represents. It's a project that goes over 3 years. This would be a 30-year, 1% interest loan. And I don't know what part of that, if any of it would be a principal forgiveness. Normally, they only give you up to $500,000 of principal forgiveness. So we'll have to wait and see what happens when we go through the paperwork. That paperwork is already in motion, but it is behind this $556,000. Both of those projects, by the way, were also chasing the federal infrastructure money. So you'll get used to seeing that Bruce and I chase multiple funding sources. We'll take whoever comes to the helm first. Questions on that? Next on the agenda, we are at page 110, which is our bridge. No changes there. We just had a bridge inspection by ODOT. We've yet to receive the final report on that. I don't anticipate any issues. The last inspection they did last year, the bridge was in great shape. That's it.
Karen just went through the operational accounts. If you have any questions regarding operations, and you can go ahead and address those. And if not, then Lori will go through, because there were several reserve funds and things that were not addressed. So that's in her wheelhouse. So she'll cover those. But any questions for Karen? Yeah.
Only just that it seemed to me that a couple of times you mentioned there were some unallocated funds that you'll be asking us for. Did you mean that we need to put that aside during this year's budget, or that you'll be coming to us sometime in the future to ask the city council for it?
I'd be coming to you in the future. The example would be 7th and Oak. My desire would be to have the funds to finish that and to kind of make amends, if you will, with state parks. That would be my desire, to put that behind us. That would be probably the first project that I'd ask.
I'm just concerned, as long as we don't have to make some budget amendments.
You can give it to me now if you'd like.
Some of those I'd be absolutely happy to do that, yes, but just in terms of passing the budget and making sure everything is where it needs to be.
I agree, Brandon. I think, if it's known that you need it and to do it this year, then I think we should address it for the budget.
Okay.
My commitment.
Simplify things.
My commitment.
Council.
That I would want to time it where we're not getting hit with this material impact that we're seeing right now. Because pipe, as you know, is just going out of sight. So I would appreciate being allotted those funds, and then allow me to time it to where we're getting the most cost effective for the materials possible. And that would be easy for me to do. All I need to do is just watch the market, and then we schedule that project as soon as I see things starting to come down.
Okay.
Now, Karen, you said between 45 and 50,000?
It originally estimated at 40,000, and the contractor's estimate came back in, as well as the engineers, at 55,000. So I've given myself that margin, and I would not want to pull the trigger on that project if it exceeded 55. We're not in a crisis there. And I think if State Parks knows that we have a solution and that we're able to get that scheduled, but we're trying to do it based on what's happening with the market right now, I think they would be understandable of that.
So you have a figure, like, would 45, if
I
we
would
added
be asking-
45 to your budget?
I'd be asking you for 55,000.
Oh, 55.
Engineer and the contractor quoted.
Okay.
And my goal would be to underrun that and try to get it back as close as I could to that 40,000.
Okay. Okay, so we just, go ahead, Bruce.
Yes, we do need to make that adjustment. And what Lori just explained to me is that the money is in the reserve fund.
What's in the ending fund
and the
balance?
ending fund balance, which we really can't access. So if you want to move that up for a project to come this year, which I do recommend, then we would take that from ending fund balance, put it in as a project and make the adjustment as part of the, another one of the amendments.
Okay, so that'll come out of, oh, good. Her own reserve, good.
Yep.
Okay,
I'm sorry. That was just correct. It's ending fund balance, not reserve. That was my,
ending fund,
I sent you down the wrong,
yeah,
down the wrong path. I apologize.
ending fund.
And that's the only project that is not reflected in this budget that I would come to you later and ask. The rest of them are in here, but my commitment is if we have those grants or federal funds get approved, that I simply tell Lori, I don't need those funds that have been allocated out of the general fund. We give that back and I'd use the federal funding for those projects.
Alicia's got a question.
I was just willing to make a motion if you're ready for a motion.
I have a question. If you get state grants for some of these projects, will will the feds say we will help you too, or will they move on to another project? I mean, can you get both state and federal grant money for the same project?
Applications like the small city allotment, they'll say if you have any other kind of funding support, they won't allocate to you. The federal applications that we put in and the FEMA grants do not have that requirement. So it doesn't mean that I couldn't get funding from both. But there are some sources, especially grants, that if you have some other funding source, they won't support you. It's either or. But on the ones that we're chasing through federal dollars and the FEMA grant, that is not a stipulation.
Okay, great.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Karen?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen.
Alicia was ready to make a motion. Is it time for a motion on this particular, or should we wait until we're talking about all the amendments? But since this is her money, just her money, not general fund money.
It's general fund money.
Depends on the motion.
Pardon me?
Depends on the motion that she wants to make.
Well, I was going to propose a motion to move 55,000 from the ending fund balance to the appropriate line item to fund the project, with the understanding that she'll be seeking other funding and the funds would not be expended if other funding became available. But I wanted to create the budget authority so she could pursue the project.
Okay, is there a second? Sounded good.
I can, some other items would be affected. And I have the numbers right here. And the lines that will be affected. Do you want me to just say that for the record?
Please.
Okay. Okay, so we're on page 95. We're adding 7th and Oak project into that capital outlay category. And that amount will be 55,000. And then total capital outlay changes to 76,000. Contingency goes up by $11,000. And that comes to a total of 61,378. Total expenditures changes to 368,266. And the ending fund balance is reduced to $87,734.
Or is it required that we specifically cover those costs in the motion? Or is it possible to say $55,000 from ending fund balance for the project, plus any other changes that are impacted in the budget? I mean, it's just, we can do it, but I don't know if anybody remembered all those numbers or understands.
I don't think you have to repeat it.
Okay.
I think it's just for the record,
What it's doing
to
is
clarify the
changing.
motion. You can say the motion that way.
I'm happy to clarify that my motion was to make the changes according to the way Lori identified the line item changes.
Well said.
Okay.
The only other project I'll mention is the Midtown bathrooms that I'll be coming to you for next week. I'm not asking for those funds in this exercise because I'm hoping to be able to eyeball some TLT money or possibly get some sort of a grant or something for that. So I'll hold off on that one.
Okay, so Alicia amended her motion. Who seconded it?
I do.
And,
You need me to resecond?
and, yeah, you second the amendment, amended motion. Okay. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed?
Right.
Okay,
Now, if Lori can go through some of the reserve items and the other things that were not directly operational.
yes,
The reason is all of these things have to be in the record of our meeting.
sure.
Covering.
Right, so I know Karen talked about the SDC funds, but I do really think we should look at the page in the budget document.
Sure.
And just so everyone has the opportunity to review what the actual numbers are, and then we can get it in the record that you've done that.
Okay.
So let's start at page 49. The new fund, park system development charges. Because we're reviewing our SDCs, and part of that process is getting them to conform with Oregon revised statutes. For the ORS, SDCs need to be collected in a separate fund. So I have gone ahead and made there's 5 that I've made, which Karen alluded to. And so this is the first one, it's Parks SDCs. I just threw a revenue stream in there of $10,000 just to get the fund started. Really don't anticipate spending anything out of here. You're limited to how you spend this money. That's why it needs to be in a separate fund. Okay. Page 74, the recycling reserve, and I'm just kind of inadvertently didn't mention it just because there's no changes as we had last year. There's just some leftover funding here that could be spent on council approval. Then we'll go to 83. That's we made water system development charges fund. Again, the same principle that I used on the parks SDCs. Anticipated revenue stream based on what council adopts as charges. And so some water SDCs. Page 92 is the wastewater SDC. And bit of money in there. Same principle.
Lori, how did you arrive at the dollar amount to put in?
I kind of looked back at what we're currently receiving, or at least the water, wastewater and storm. I have no history for parks or roads, so I just threw some money in there. I mean, we're not going to spend.
Have an impact, I know.
Right, exactly.
Just wondered how you came up with the number.
I'm telling you all my secrets. Okay, we did 90, page 92. Page 100. Storm drain SDCs. Same story. 7,000 in there. And then the roads SDC on page 108. $1,000 in there. And I believe that is it.
So there's 5 SDC. you have anything else, Lori? No, that's it. Okay.
Thank you.
That's got everything covered. That has everything covered now that she's,
Okay, good. We're all legal.
Looked at every page you need to now.
Okay. I guess now we would have our discussion on any amendments to the general fund. I would like to bring up the issue I brought up last time about putting money aside
Sticky note.
for the police station / city hall. I just think that it's prudent to get that project started. I mean, that's just a tiny step, but it shows a commitment, like with all of Karen's projects, she's got the commitments, so then she's gonna get the money. She can show she's, it's in the works. And I think that before that if we start to show commitment, we're going to have a good opportunity to show good faith to the public, the rest of the town and stuff. Because, we're going to have to ask for money. I think even if you do the food and beverage tax, we're still going to have to ask for money from the citizens for the buildings. And I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think, everyone in town knows it's been talked about for years and it needs to be done. I passed out the sheet that was in the community bulletin, just the part of the police station. And I thought, I know you probably all read the community bulletin, but to have this and to have it in front of you and see what exactly is wrong and how bad it is, I think that this is something that the public should see occasionally.
Mhm.
You don't have to put in every, but I think it, project of continuing on this and this is why, just if you keep it in front of people, then they don't, because like I said before, I've been listening to this for almost 30 years. And I knew it was bad. I knew it was small. I had no idea how bad.
Yeah.
And that's what really spurred me on it, to really kind of really advocate for it, starting in honest effort. So I just think that, I don't know, if it's in the 700,000, we make that less or whatever.
what I would
Said it.
recommend,
I don't know, but I just, you would know where to get some money or to adjust some money in, but I would like to see that. I don't know. Obviously, I'm one of 10, so.
if you do want to do that, what I would recommend is that we take $300,000 from what was going to be transferred to the general fund reserve, and then allocate that for, I believe it would be all of schematic design and part of design development, which is one of the three phases. That can be written up so that that fund would be repaid from bond proceeds. So you can go back and collect.
And repay, okay.
You can do it that way. Just a comment on the, when you mentioned food and beverage, the preliminary calculations are that if we were to split it in half, for example, and we're going to have more information on the 11th, but even if it was to go half to the fire department, half to the city, preliminary calculations, it would take care of all of the debt service for the city hall part. So you mentioned that maybe we have to have more money from another source. We may, but I think that the debt service could be taken care of from that. We still don't know everything because there hasn't been that many people who have adopted one yet.
Right, but council will have to decide whether to get a loan or float a bond or something. So we're going to have to get money that has to be paid back. You know, and that's obviously by the people. And whether it's just, I mean, we're all gonna pay it back, and that's fine. I mean, it's what it's all about. But I think, I agree with you. I think it's, you know, that's the
Mhm.
food and beverage will take care of
I think the debt service. I think
the debt
and
service.
it
Yeah,
wouldn't be a cost to the citizens. But okay, that's just the preliminary calculation.
right. Anybody else have anything to say, please?
I think it's a good idea.
And I appreciate you saying that last night at council too. Oh, my ears perked up.
It is symbolic, but symbols mean things to people, so.
But it's more than symbolic, because if we have funds and we have spending authority, at the point that the council is ready to move forward, we can hire an architect, we can start the process. Where without that, we would be looking and maybe doing transfers and other things. So it's a commitment, but it's a real commitment because it's something that you can say, all right, go. And we have it.
No, but I'm agreeing with how you, the way you explained it, rather than just setting up an account and putting something in reserve. We earmark that for specific use with a source identified, then it makes it real, not
Yes.
merely symbolic.
Yes,
And the mechanism to repay.
Yeah, and it's something that we actually, if it's budgeted for, we can move ahead.
yes,
We would want to make sure that we're going to have the ability to pay it back before we start moving ahead, but at least we can do that.
correct.
And where the caveat, I think, on the payback is that you need to go for some sort of a loan, which we would need to do anyway. And then you make that part. I think that at some point, the council would actually do a resolution stating your intent to recapture certain costs that have been incurred. For example, the funds that we've already spent on SRG, we can recover those. Yeah, from the bonds, but you have to kind of state that going in, you know, early. And then when you do the bond, you say, hey, we've got these expenses. But the caveat is if we don't go or if we don't get a loan, then there is no other source of repayment. Because it would have to come from loan proceeds.
I like the idea.
And that's a motion.
Well, if I were chairperson, make a motion.
I don't think can the chair make a motion?
Actually, you can. We've been through all that. You can, but. Help me through this.
Would you like a suggestion?
Well, sure, I'm always good, open to suggestions. I'm just trying to, hear your suggestions and then.
Well, it would be to reduce the contribution to the general fund reserve to $400,000. And the $300,000 difference be allocated to the design fees for the city hall and police station. And that the intent is to recover those fees and pay them back to the general fund reserve when the loan is out of the loan proceeds. Don't ask me to repeat it. I don't know what I said.
You got that?
Yeah, but I think that's covered very clearly, the discussion and the intent.
Yes,
So I guess I make the motion that we adjust the budget as it had been so eloquently described by our city manager. And the fact that we're going to reduce the reserve fund by $300,000 and put that in the fund for a future A&E engineering study, which would be paid back out of any loan proceeds if we move ahead.
is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay, I have one little question for discussion. when you say it's for the design, and if it doesn't take all that money, does it have to, I mean, can it be for, what do you do with the balance of the money that you don't use when it's so specifically?
Does it go back into
We
the
could,
ending fund balance?
no, we could transfer it back, or
I mean,
we could only transfer as much as we need to pay as we go along, I guess.
would it be appropriate to add to the motion for the design and what you said, and future expenses? That way, the money,
It can be used.
because I'm afraid with budget law, you get so, if you have it so specific, then that's all.
I
Yeah,
think
that's a good point.
And related expenses probably is the right way to say it.
Associated expenses.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a good correction.
I don't think we have to worry about that. It'll use all the funds. At least it's covered that way.
So if you just amend it to what you said, plus.
The other thing is, you can always change it in the next budget. I mean.
Well, but we know
if there's-
now we should change it
left
now.
over, You've got something to work with in the next budget.
Oh, that's interesting.
And to your point, Sam, you could do it anytime during the year.
Also that too. This is just cleaner.
I was gonna say, if we just take care of it now while you're making, instead of knowing you're gonna have to change it, I think that you're not supposed to do that.
Phyllis has her hand up.
Oh, Phyllis?
The way this is written, it looks like the only way that the money will be repaid would be through, if we took out a loan. But if we don't take out a loan, does that mean that the money won't get repaid? You want to make it that, you're talking about additional taxes is another way that you could repay this. So I'm afraid the way that this is stated is a little too specific about the way repayment would take place.
I think we'll need a loan to begin this regardless of how the loan gets repaid. So there may be mobile solutions for repaying the loan, whether it's additional, tax increases, property tax, referendum.
I understand that, but the way this is stated is that the only source of repayment would be if you take out a loan and use the loan money to repay this loan from the general fund. So would there be other sources of money that could be used to repay the general fund?
I'm not aware of any. You could make an adjustment later on and make up the difference of $300,000 or whatever, but there's no,
Okay.
unless you move it around somehow internally,
Uh-huh.
then I don't know if that's a repayment, but you can reshuffle. But actually having money
Right.
from an outside source to go ahead and replenish that, I'm not aware of a way that can happen unless it comes as part of the condition of the loan.
Well, because you're talking about food and beverage tax. I mean, you're talking about other sources of revenue besides going out and getting an external loan, right?
Well-
Unless I'm not understanding this, you're talking about getting an external loan to repay an internal loan. Is that right?
Not quite. What would happen is that you would get an external loan for the cost of the project.
Uh-huh.
Then, for example, if you use food and beverage tax, if you use a property tax, whatever, that would be paying the debt service every year.
Okay.
But when you're talking about the bigger loan that you're going out for to pay for the whole project, you've got, the construction, the design, everything else, but you can also take out a piece that says, when we get whatever this amount is, we'll add $300,000 to what we're borrowing if we want to. And then we would pay back the general fund.
Okay, so the way that you're going to repay the general fund is through taking out an external loan.
Yes,
Yeah.
essentially,
Okay.
yes.
And that's the only way you're going to do it. That's the only way you're going to do it, right?
Yeah, well, the only.
Because that's the way, that's what the resolution is saying right now. That's what the,
Yes.
you know, what you're, okay.
But I'm hearing two things. One is that, you know, the way that I'm trying to explain it is that when you get the entire amount for the project, you can get the loan repaid out of that. Or potentially, the way that you were saying, we could go out and get a loan for $300,000. But that's not how I see it happening. I see it becoming part of the loan proceeds for the entire project. Not to
And
go
is
out-
that what is, so is that what the resolution is specifying? I guess I'm trying to figure out what it is we were gonna vote on
I
exactly.
think that's the
How
intent
it
of
would
the
work.
resolution.
That is
I
how the
don't-
motion would work. The money would come from the loan proceeds that would go back. to the-
Okay, okay, and then that would be the only way that it would get repaid would be through an external loan. Okay,
Okay, good talk, Phyllis.
well, I'm just trying to figure out if there's other sources.
No.
Or if we're limiting things too much, or if we're actually reflecting what it is you want to do.
Yeah, no. My comment was that we got it sorted out, so I think that was good. I'm sorry, Phyllis, I didn't mean to throw you off.
I think Alicia has something to say.
Just a
Angela?
quick question. Is the project funding potentially from a bond instead of a loan? I just wanted to make sure, similar to Phyllis's question, that we weren't too restrictive in saying that we were
Yeah.
borrowing a loan if we might be doing bond funding. So the project
Right.
funding should be bonds, right?
Most likely it'll be bonds.
Yeah. I just want to make sure the motion wasn't too restrictive to focus on a loan instead of
Exactly.
bond.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to get at. Thank you, Alicia.
Okay.
Jennifer, would you read the motion again?
We have the original motion, or I don't know if you officially revised it. So here's the original motion. It was up here. Move to reduce the contribution to general fund reserve to 400,000 and the 300,000 difference shall be allocated to the design fees for the City Hall police station. And that the intent is to recover the fees and pay back the general fund reserve out of the loan proceeds. So then the revision was going to be revise the motion to include any associated fees, if that was what you guys wanted to do. And we can also amend the motion to say loan/bond,
Loan/bond, great.
or whatever you guys want to include both sources, so no matter what. If somebody wants to amend their motion accordingly.
Not sure I want to say loan/bond.
Do you want to say bond?
Does anybody know what a bond is, by the way? Does everybody have the same definition of bond?
Yeah.
A loan based that we go out and ask the taxpayers to pay based on, and we increase their property taxes?
No.
That's a GO,
Some people like.
general obligation bond.
What's that?
It's a general obligation bond, but you have other types of bonds like revenue bonds.
Well, that's the whole point. A number of different types, and I'm not sure everybody.
Ours, well, we would be going for a GO bond, right?
Yeah, general.
Yeah,
Maybe-
but you guys have to decide how you're going to do it. And those are the two ways that you would do it.
Right.
And so
How do we pay?
in the
back-
motion,
Pay back the GO bond, we have several options on how to pay that back. Pay the debt service on it.
Do you have to specify how you're paying it back? Or
That's what I'm wondering is, do we have to even talk about how we're going to pay it back?
We're getting too.
No, I don't believe that you do.
Well, you could say, we are paid back by the project funding.
Yeah.
That's open.
that's good. Yeah, project funding is great.
We have a financial advisor, and he's talked to us about different types of projects, nothing as large as this particular one. But he said sometime he does private placements.
Yeah, but those are
So-
limited in what you can do.
Right. I'm saying, but that's why the
There
loan
is a
slash
bunch of
bond doesn't
different-
bother me, because there might be another mechanism.
Yeah.
But it's, I think it's clear enough and broad enough to work with easily.
And you think that the payback portion should be in the resolution? Or just the resolution to move the money?
I think that the intent of the budget committee is good to put in the motion.
Okay,
And then later on, we'll be talking about expenses that we've incurred when it comes time to go out for that type of a loan or bond. And so we've already expressed an intent that this will be one of the items that will be included.
Okay,
Oh, what I'm hearing is loan/bond. I don't think it is.
Any way I think it works, I just am concerned about anything that might restrict us later.
I'm comfortable just leaving it as a loan because there's so many different types of loans. It leaves us a lot of.
well, but you know, for the resolution, I don't think that it matters. Because whatever type of loan we would get or whatever, you know, the bond, those are the funding sources. And that's just going to be the money that's going to be coming in, however we decide to get it.
Can't you just say with the intent of repaying to making repayment or something like that without saying how you're going to do it?
Well-
But I think the idea is that it's specific to the project.
Okay, so project funding would be,
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's.
project funding I like, because that maybe we'll get a big donation.
So
Yeah,
We have applied for that.
And substitute term loan with project financing.
Okay,
I think, then read it back, see if that works.
ready? Okay, this is the revised motion. To reduce the contribution to the general fund reserve, reduce the contribution of general fund reserve to 400,000 and the $300,000 difference be allocated to the design fees and associated costs for the city hall/police station. And that the intent is to recover the fees and pay back the general fund reserve with the project financing.
I think that works.
Okay, so we have a second for the revised motion?
I'll second it.
okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
My best present. Okay, so do we have anything else that we need to discuss?
I don't think there's anything that we need to bring up or put forward.
What about your Beach Elementary?
Oh, yeah, it's a similar project to what we were talking up at 7th and Oak, and that's that, and Lori will have to explain it, but it's doing the county TRT transfer in for the architectural costs. And we're already incurring costs for the design and for the study that was done before that exceed our current balance.
This is
So
the cost for what? Is this for the school? Are you talking?
for the school, yes.
Yeah, because
I thought you said it was, sorry. For the school.
For the Beach Elementary project.
Okay,
And what's happened is that we've kind of gotten things out of phase so that we could have a roof on it by the next time it rains. And we won't have cash to do that. Do we have to find any internal loans that would happen now? Was that what you're
We'll
talking
do a
about?
transfer in order
Okay,
to do the A&E stuff
yeah,
in the Clatsop County TRT fund.
right.
Should add some money to do that, if you want to do that. And I was thinking it could be a general fund transfer, like we just increase we already have one here.
Like we did a loan towards the purchase from TAC funds. We borrowed $100,000 because it was 400,000. We had 300,000 in the balance. And then we said we would pay back 34,000 every year. This year will be the second year and it's in here. So we're paying that back, but that came from actually a similar fund in that it was a TLT fund.
So on page 42, the general fund, we already have a transfer going into the county CRT fund. We would want to increase that to allow for the cost of the architecture engineering to start.
That's the 388 that's in there now.
Right. And I don't know what the sum of that. I don't know what your estimate is, Bruce.
Well, it's not just the design, it's the cost of the roof itself.
Oh, I thought that was in the 750.
I'm sorry, it isn't 750, you're correct.
Talking about page 42 and.
I think to start engineering, or I'm sorry, the architectural work. And this is really a council question. Do we want to start shortly after July 1st to pick up on any process that we're going to do, towards that project? We're going to be bringing you a scope of services for an architectural and engineering firm to, pick things up from there. Depending on when you want to start that, we would need to do that transfer and have it in the budget for July 1st. If we're going to wait until we accumulate enough funds for when we get paid by the county, you probably need to. Can we take a break?
Okay, we'll come back to order. And Bruce, we'll continue.
Yeah, I'll just kind of do an intro on it. What we're talking about is being able to move forward with the Cannon Beach Elementary. We've all, from the very beginning, we knew that cash flow was going to be a problem. And it still is. So Lloyd and I were just talking, let me see, what we need to address is to make sure that there's enough money to be able to pay for the roof. And I'm assuming that we want to, we being the council, wants to start the design process sometime after July 1st and not wait a year or something. So that means we would need to put some design money. And so Lori and I have talked that through, and we already had put, I think it was 388 over. And Lori thinks we might be able to use something from to make up the difference, which I forgot what the number was. You went and cleaned the house, if you would.
Okay, we have in the general fund, if you look at page 26, we have a contingency of $913,697. Bruce is hoping that we could reduce that by 150,000 and add to the transfer to county. And in fact, this is an error. I think this is on the line of wastewater, that 388,600.
Oh,
You're looking at page 26. That should be down below for county. It's stated correctly back on the non-departmental page. If you look at page 42, that is stated correctly. So, but anyway, we want to reduce contingency by 150,000 and increase the transfer to Clatsop County TRT by 150,000. And that's a total of 538,600.
Maureen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's just one line down, correct? The transfer to county TRT fund
Correct.
rather than the wastewater.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that just gives us some funds to use if we decide how we decide to move forward.
Yes. Yes. I don't think that would, it might be able to help construction to a degree. I don't think there'll be a lot of it with the construction, but it does fund what you want to do next.
Okay.
I've just been trying to think of a reason why, can't think of a reason why you would want to pause in terms of doing exactly what you said. So I think by default, I absolutely agree.
I didn't want to be presumptuous and say that this is what you have to do, because we're still kind of talking about the Cannon Beach Elementary. But I got the sense definitely we were talking about going to the next phase, which is design.
I think so.
Yes, and you've asked to see a scope, and that's coming to you next week. So, so yes, we're in concert on that.
Do we have any, we don't have any idea yet how much the roof is going to cost, do we? Or do we have an estimate at all?
Not definitive.
No, it's not very definitive. I mean,
It goes up by the day.
I know. No, that's what I'm concerned about.
yeah, and that's the thing, what we're up against. So I think when we see it, we'll know what it is. I think we've got what,
750.
750, went up from like 500 or so.
Maybe we could just do the west side.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yes,
Okay, now we need a motion to adjust this, correct?
or do you want to, okay,
I move that we move 150,000 from the general fund contingency up to transfer to county TRT fund.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay,
Another break.
now Sam's happy too. We're all happy.
just one thing, I think that we should probably put just as an understanding that to the degree possible that we would recapture those funds from loan proceeds, you know, when we do move forward, because it's, again, from the cash flow, we're going to get money in July, we'll get money again in January. I'm not sure exactly when we would be able to go ahead and pay back like $500,000. So
My understanding was that this was coming from the TRT funds specifically to pay that back to the general fund. Now, how we do that, if we use the TRT funds for the loan, then it would come back still to pay it back. Yes.
yeah, but the idea is,
The county room.
the idea is if we can recover it to pay back, we will be doing that. We have the option to do it. Everybody agrees? Okay, good.
I think that's great.
All right.
Okay,
All right.
are there any other adjustments?
The one I originally discussed on the agenda, the first item on the agenda
Oh,
Here last week.
today. One that you have the handout.
Brand, that's the one that has to do with the chamber contribution.
does it look like?
And you squared this up with Jen.
Gave you a handout.
Oh, yeah, okay, I know I've got that somewhere. Okay, so do we have to make a motion on this? Because we were presented with something and you changed it.
Exactly.
Okay, okay.
He's looking for an adoption of the amended page 5.
You could say that you're going to increase the resources line revenue in excess of budget
by $39,595. And the same would go for the tourism promotions line would be increased by the same.
Why don't we just do it by from to rather than the rest?
What was that again, Mike? I'm sorry.
Rather than doing the arithmetic,
Mhm.
just say that
Good.
we amended total resources from the proposed $444,655 to $481,250.
Were there other changes as a result?
Well, resources and then expenditures, materials and services is the same.
Yeah. So we would amend the proposed budget for materials and services. Well, it'll be under tourism and promotion. We would amend that from $444,655 to $481,250. And of course, that changes the total requirements by the same amounts.
Got it? Okay, is there a second? That was, okay. Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, done. Okay,
Yeah. Action.
the staff report.
Yes. Okay, so most of you are used to seeing the staff report that I put together. So you guys have done all of your deliberations and everything. Okay. Hard work. Budget committee action, final approval. States the requirements of the committee and that we have estimated revenues and expenditures. The rest of our authority, the budget committee has reviewed all of those revenues and expenditures. Budget committee is tasked with approving tax amounts and rates to levy on the assessed value of the city. If you, Madam Chair, would read the attached budget committee action, that will tell what I tried to summarize just now. And then you can make a motion. On my staff report, I have a recommended motion that anybody can make if they so choose. And then we can
Finish up.
say good to go.
Okay, who had the question?
Phyllis had her hand up.
Phyllis, did you have a question?
Well, I just wondered, when are we going to vote on the taxes? Are we going to do that right now? Don't we have to take a vote on, is that what we're doing right? I mean, I couldn't tell. It seemed like we were going to approval of the budget before we were doing the approval of the taxes. That was just my question.
This is the motion that you're going to make, the budget committee action. And once the chair reads the document, you'll see that you're approving the budget and you're approving all the taxes at the same time.
Okay, that was my question. Thanks.
Then we need a motion to approve this, which is in my staff report. So you can read what you're approving and then make.
And then have a motion.
Actually do it.
Okay, so the Budget Committee action, the final approval of the City of Cannon Beach fiscal year 2021-22 proposed budget document, including any amendments by the Cannon Beach Committee, Budget Committee. Approval of the fiscal year 2021-2022 proposed budget document, including amendments by the Cannon Beach Budget Committee, and submitting the approved budget to the City Council and recommending adoption. Whereas pursuant to Oregon budget law and after careful consideration, Cannon Beach Budget Committee has comprised and approved a balanced budget for the City of Cannon Beach for fiscal year 2021-22. Whereas the proposed fiscal year 2021-2022 budget contains best estimates for projected revenues and expenditures. Whereas the Budget Committee has reviewed all estimated revenues and expenditures for the city departments and funds for fiscal year 2021-2022, making modifications and changes where appropriate. Therefore, the City of Cannon Beach Budget Committee has approved and authorized the city to levy the permanent rate of 0.7049 cents per thousand of assessed value for the general fund, to levy $420,054 for bonded debt, and to levy 0.2590 per thousand of assessed value for the Cannon Beach Road District. After completing all obligations required under the Oregon budget law, the Cannon Beach Budget Committee hereby approves the fiscal year 2022 proposed budget as amended, comprised of revenues, expenditures for all city funds and departments, and submits the approved fiscal year 2021-2022 budget to the City Council for further consideration and recommended adoption. Approved by the Budget Committee on this day, 12th day of May 2021. And then we need a motion.
Like a clarification, just was a slip. But in identifying the rate increase of 0.7049 per thousand, you said cents, and that's really
Oh, I'm sorry.
dollars.
I'm sorry.
So it's
70 cents on the dollar,
It's,
a thousand.
yeah, it's 0.7049 per thousand of assessed.
yes. Okay. And maybe I just misheard it, but
No, I think I did say it. Yeah.
Ready for motion?
Yes.
I move to approve the budget committee action, which gives final approval of the City of Cannon Beach fiscal year 2021 to 2022 proposed budget document, including any amendments by the Cannon Beach Budget Committee.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we go, I wanted to talk with council real quick about that special meeting. So are we gonna go with Wednesday, 19th at 6 p.m. or did you want to stick with Tuesdays and do it on May 25th? The 19th is Sam, would you have enough time to get everyone your materials? Would you guys want to go with Wednesday at 6 p.m.?
That would be my preference.
Okay.
And don't forget, we have a coffee with the counselors next Monday at 10 a.m. in case anybody wants to join us by Zoom.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Hey,
Phyllis?
Thank you.
We can still phone for.
thank you, Zoomies.
Hey, Phyllis.
Phyllis,
Yes,
Lori.
what?
We have this document for you to sign and we're gonna come over to your house if that's okay and have you sign it.
Okay,
Unless you know, just want to make it
that's fine.
convenient for you. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're adjourned.
Good job, Sharon.